How do you reintroduce bondage to a submissive who has been previously traumatized with bondage is essentially the question. So I feel like this is a soft limit, right? There are some parameters, right, that need to be adhered to, or maybe this is just a trigger, but this is not a hard limit. This is not something she's unwilling to do. And it sounds like she's willing to experiment and try some things and reintroduce herself to this, according to what the dominant here has described. So I'm hearing willingness here. I'm hearing that, okay, this may be a trigger, but it's not something that we need to look at as we are now, being abusive or crossing a line or anything, because it sounds very much like there is willingness and experimentation happening, and it has been going on for a while. I don't know what that timeline is, but that's my initial observation. So I would ask you, the dominant who asked me this question, why are the tears triggered? What are the thoughts and fears? What is happening in that moment? I know that you told me what is happening, but I, and you most importantly, need to know the why behind the what. You need to know why right now are the tears flowing? What happened right now or just recently in our play that triggered the tears? What's going on? Did she have a flashback? Is it just a subconscious like body reaction where her body's being activated and then she doesn't understand what to do with it or how to process it on a conscious level, mentally and emotionally? I would say when she is being triggered, that's not the time to ask these questions. This is more of a, before you play next, have this conversation. Before you play next, sit down with her and create a very nurturing, safe space to have this conversation where she feels very held by you emotionally. She feels very seen, and there's affection, there's warmth, there's tenderness, but you're probing into this. You want to figure out, why does this keep happening? Yes, I know there's previous trauma, but specifically in these moments when she's getting triggered, what is happening? I need more insight into her experience, and so do you. My second point here is to build safety by slowly leaning into the trigger and proving that you're safe and that she can let go. And we talked about this actually last week in the Q&A when I mentioned a scene that I recently had where the submissive in the scene, her body got activated, her body got triggered subconsciously. And I came across, oh, okay, I wasn't aware that this was a trigger that is now activating her body. And so it became not a place for me as the dominant leading the scene to shy away from. No, I'm not going to be intimidated by a trigger. I'm the boss here. I'm alpha. And this is my beta's beta. That's how I look at it. I look at triggers, submissive triggers, as my beta's beta, right? So I'm not going to let my submissive nor their trigger impact me in a negative way, intimidate me. No, I'm the boss. I am alpha, and I will handle this. And that mentality is part of what allows a submissive to feel safe in your presence, even in the midst of a trigger, whether previously perceived or not. So slowly build safety by leaning into the trigger gradually and proving that you're safe and that she can let go. Last line is, I have bought and tried many ideas, but I feel like this might never be a thing, which stops things like a St. Andrew's cross, spreader bars, etc. Dominant who asked me this question, you are absolutely allowed to have your fantasies and your desires, just like your submissive is allowed to have their fantasies and their desires. You are allowed to thoroughly enjoy the erotic and sexual elements of your play. You are more than allowed to just have an amazing time in your bondage scene if that's what you're into. I'm not saying any of those are wrong. Part of the allure, the lifestyle. But my friend, if that is your goal, getting getting to the St. Andrew's cross, getting to the spreader bar. And that's what you're doing. That's your strategy here. Is we were asking me this question because you want to know how to get to that goal. That shouldn't be your goal. The St. Andrew's cross and spreader bar shouldn't be your goal at this point because it's going to set you up for failure. Again, you're allowed to want all of those things. Those are beautiful things. I love that shit. I love bondage on the top and the bottom. There's nothing wrong with the desires. There's nothing wrong with wanting this kind of play. Nothing like that. But this cannot be your goal. Because if that is your goal, the submissive, who already is triggered by this, is going to get that pressure from you. They're going to perceive and feel that pressure from you. And so that trigger that's already present is going to get activated even stronger. And now they're going to feel this, I'm not allowed to feel triggered. I need to get over this quickly. I am preventing my dominant from doing something they want. I am stopping their pleasure, preventing their pleasure. Submissives go down this path. Submissives, am I wrong? Submissives go down that path. And so if she's already triggered in this way, and then you're going, hey, let's try more bondage because I want to do a St. Andrew's cross or I want to do a spreader bar. And I know you're not ready for that, but let's keep trying these things and these things because I want to get to that place. Okay. Feeling like you failed is devastating. I'm not wrong. Okay. So that's the mentality that submissives, they've been hanging out with me in my community. Hopefully they won't go there because they will feel more secure and empowered. But a lot of submissives do. They go down that path. And then there's judgment and shame. And then there's disconnection. And then how you were currently playing, how you were currently dipping your toes in bondage, that's going to go out the window. So practically speaking, my friend, this cannot be your strategy to add more bondage, to increase in the bondage, to add more intense bondage play. That cannot be your strategy. Even though that may be a desire in the back of your head, keep that as a desire in the back of your head. Do not employ that as your strategy. Your goal, your strategy at this point should be eliminating or reducing the trigger response to the point that subspace can be reached. That's our goal here, because that's what's being blocked right now. A blissed out submissive who feels safe doesn't, get that activated. They don't get that triggered. And if they do, then okay, we need to lean into that. We need to figure out what's really going on here. So that would be the thing. We need to get back to the possibility of just checking out where your submissive feels so safe that they can let go. Smart, take it little step by step. Okay. So yes, lean into the trigger, but do so gently, do so gradually, do so slowly. And I would actually advise you to start out with things like verbal bondage. When you have a submissive that is triggered in this area, you want to set it up to kind of lean into it and to push, but in a way that is gradual and hopefully non-triggering or less triggering. And so, even if you just hold her hands, like I was just saying, holding her hands behind her back with one of your hands as you're doing something else, stimulating her in some other way, and then take your hands away, for a short period of time, and take your hands away and check in. Hey, was that safe? Did you feel safe with that? Can we keep going? And then add something else to that. And if, again, check in. If it's a good response, go from there. You know what I mean? So verbal commands like stand against the wall with your hands above your head, whatever. Getting her used to the association that bondage with you is safe.